Hello, everybody. It is January 20th, 2025, and it is a Monday. Here in Columbus, it is a frigid day. It's about 11 degrees Fahrenheit, negative 11.7 degrees Celsius. Today, I had the
Sure.
day off work for a federal holiday. It's a great day for projects today, Alex. I have the podcast, of course. I also had my identity stolen recently, so now I have some unexpected tasks to take care of. You know who you are. I will find you. Later today, we're projected to reach a high of 14 degrees Fahrenheit, negative 10 degrees Celsius, and it looks like it'll be mostly clear all along the way. Welcome to episode 105 of the Old Mage MTG podcast with your host, Old Mage Steve, that's me, and Old Mage Alex, that's that guy over there.
Yo,
Thank you so much for joining us. Whether you're watching us on YouTube or Spotify or Google Podcasts or Apple Podcasts, if you haven't already, click the damn subscribe button. What are we at on YouTube, Alex? Now, I think we're at 393 subscribers. We got 4 new subs out of the last episode. I appreciate you. Today, we're going to follow up on last episode's Premodern Rebel review with a discussion of some Rebel decks. We're going to discuss a couple classic Rebel decks, as well as some that you can play in pre-modern today. But before we begin with our main topic, I want to know what's been happening in your MTG life since last episode, Alex.
in my MTG life, not a whole lot. One thing I was looking at, I found out that in the Foundation set that they just released, that they have two different like starter sets for it. I was kind
Okay.
of checking those out, sniffing around them. What did you say?
I said, okay. Okay.
Okay.
That's all I said.
One is just a bunch of like loose cards, sort of. It says in the description on the website, it says that it has 387 magic cards, 3 play boosters, and 90 basic lands. It's called the Foundation Starter Collection. So it's uh, kind of like a cube that you can start with to like build decks. And I guess it has like a how to build a deck booklet and stuff like that in it. Some tokens, some like stuff to get started, just like a big chunk of cards to play with. So I thought that was kind of cool. But the one I think I liked a little more is called the Beginner Box. Um, and it has a bunch of 20 card jumpstart decks, and you're supposed to be able to shuffle 2 of them together and play. And I assume that they're all kind of different, or at least half of them are different. Uh, so you can do different combos of the 2 20 card decks together to make like different themed beginner decks. I think it comes
20
with play
card decks.
mats, some other stuff
That's
too.
that's unusual. I mean, maybe this is something they've been doing for a while, but we don't buy many new products, so I'm not familiar really with what their starter sets are usually like, or their starter products are usually like. But a 20 deck box, or sorry, a 20 card box deck. Jesus Christ. A 20 card deck sounds unusual to me.
Yeah.
Shuffle two
Well,
together and
you
play.
do 2 of them together, so it'd be a 40 card deck,
Okay.
I think. But I think the way the Jumpstarter booster packs work when you buy normal Jumpstarter booster packs, I think it does make something like an even smaller deck, like a 20 or some card decks. You just shuffle like 2 boosters together and play with them.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. It says in here that 2 of the decks are tutorial decks that aren't supposed to be shuffled. They're supposed to be played in the order that they come, like as tutorials. So I don't know if they can be mixed with the other ones or not. It sounds kind of like I'd maybe like separate those ones and play with the other remaining 8 decks, mix and match them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not exactly sure how that works, but I was looking at these 2 things. I thought they were kind of neat.
They've progressed since the day of the starter deck.
Yeah. And one thing I do like, I'm not too much into newer product, but some of the things I think are kind of cool would be, beginner deck boxes. Like I got the Bloomborough one that has the 2 beginner precons in it.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a way to check out like some of the newer sets without going all in and buying a whole bunch and trying to get into a new format.
I wonder why they want the newbies to play these 40 card decks. Because most of Magic today Well, there's Commander, of course, it's 100 card decks. But then most of Constructed Magic are still 60 card decks.
Yeah, I don't know. I
Before
guess they
we
figure it
actually,
doesn't really matter too much as far as like learning the rules of the game and stuff.
yeah, before we actually started playing, was it true that like the very original way to play the game was just 40 card decks?
Yeah. I mean, very original, there might not have been a limit at all, but I believe when we started playing like in revised, it was still kind of like I think the rule manual still said like a minimum of 40 cards. Uh,
Okay.
but I think official play probably by that point had I don't really even know, I'm just speculating, but I think, official play at that point was probably 60 card.
I just know I have to look into this at some point. I know that the guys that play like Alpha 40, they
Uh-huh.
play the Alpha only decks. They play Alpha 40.
Yeah,
They're
okay.
40 card decks. And I don't know off the top of my head if that's because that's originally how Magic was played,
I'm
like when it was
almost positive,
very
yeah. I
first
think that was
released,
the
or
original minimum.
if it's just too difficult for most people to get like a 60 card deck of Alpha, so it's
No,
easier.
no, I think that's to emulate how it used to be, yeah.
That's what I thought. Okay. So they still do that sometimes these
Yeah.
days with their beginner sets. Okay, Alex is looking at foundations. He's going back to the foundations of Magic the Gathering with new products. On my end, I've been making some purchases, Alex. So I
Yeah.
got some purchases to talk about. Nothing real big, but when we first started getting back into the game 2 years ago, I remember you were calling me and I was like, I do want to get some Magic cards again, but I'm not going to play. I'm just going to collect. I'm just going to
Hmm.
buy some of the cards that like I really liked as a young kid that aren't too expensive right now. I'm just going to start picking those up and I'm going to collect them. And I started collecting Legends. Those are the cards that really drew me in when I first saw them when I was young. The legendary creatures from Legends. So, like 2 years ago, I started buying Legends printings of Elder Dragons. I think the first card I bought when we started getting into the game again was Legends Solkanar.
Okay.
But then I got the bug. I got the playing bug again. And we found Premodern. I started buying cards for decks all the time, trying to build a bunch of different Premodern decks, and I've been neglecting Legends.
And now you're screwed.
Now I'm going back to Legends, Alex. So I bought a couple of legendary cards the other day. They showed up in the mail. I got a Storm Seeker. I think this is Storm Seeker number 2.
Oh, I was gonna say, didn't you already have one?
I think I have one. Now
Yeah.
this is number 2.
That's one of the ones that I picked up pretty early on too when we started getting back into this. I was like, I gotta get a Storm Seeker.
Everybody has to have a Storm Seeker. And I'm building mono green decks for old school right now. I'm hoping to meet up with the old school people here in Columbus at some point next month. Gonna bring my mono green deck. Maybe put a Storm Seeker in the sideboard. I'm not running it main board, but maybe put it in the sideboard just because it's fun to play. I also bought this card. I might put this in the sideboard as well. I needed some spuzums, Alex, if that's how you
Uh-oh.
pronounce it. I purchased 2 floral spuzums.
Floral Spuzums.
What is a floral spuzum, you might
Remind
ask?
us all.
I'm going to show you what a floral spuzum is. I don't know how many spuzums have been printed in Magic the Gathering since floral spuzum. This might be the
Man,
original. I believe
that's a
this
good
is the
trivia
original.
question.
It's not the best card in the world, but it's a fun card, and it's only a few bucks. Uncommon from Legends. 3 colorless, 1 green, 2/2, summon Spuzum. If Floral Spuzum attacks an opponent and is not blocked, then Floral Spuzum may choose to destroy a target artifact under that opponent's control and deal no damage. I like this card for several reasons. One, because it's a Spuzum. And
It
with
might be
real,
its strongest point.
it's a really goofy art. I don't even know what a Spuzum is, Alex. Is it a real thing? Google Spuzum for me.
I want to say it's related to like spores, like it's a type of
Yeah,
like pollination or
it's definitely of the plant variety. What should I say? Kingdom plant. Plante? Plant. Kingdom plant. The plant kingdom. Fungi aren't plants. They're not in the plant kingdom. They're a different kingdom, right?
I'm sorry, I was looking at I'm sorry.
What's a
I'm
spuzum?
trying to look up Spuzum.
Google Spasm.
And I can't find anything that isn't related to magic or the proper name of a place in British
This is
Columbia.
okay,
So,
perfect. This is what I wanted. I wanted to know if it was a word that is unique to Magic the Gathering.
yeah, I think they just kind of made something that sounds sort of like a scientific word and because it tricked me. I thought it was like real.
Spasm is this is from MTG Wiki. Spasm is an obsolete and test card creature type for a race of plant-like elementals on Dominaria. There is a red card that you like that you always talk about that looks very much like this. It is
Mm,
not green, but the
spinal villain.
art is the same. Spinal Villain. I wonder, is it a red Spasm?
I believe it's a red elemental.
Okay.
Maybe.
Okay,
Maybe. I'm
Spasms
just
are
guessing.
elemental.
Look it up.
So perhaps that is the Spasm art on Spinal Villain as well. Let me see if that's also a Rob Alexander
Oh,
card.
that's an interesting theory that spinal villain was maybe initially a planned to be a spasm. Oh no, I'm sorry. It's a villain. It counts as a
That's a villain.
nope,
Okay.
nope. Sorry. Now it's a beast.
Okay.
Now it's a
It
beast.
doesn't look it. Okay. It does. It doesn't look as much like the Spasm as I thought it did, does
Just
it?
a little, yeah. It's more horrific.
Yeah. But I don't have a Spinal Villain. I own two floral Spasms.
What did you start to ask me about fungus?
Different kingdom.
Oh, yeah, then plants. Yeah.
Yeah, different kingdom. Different type of organism. Different evolutionary relationship. Separate kingdom, kingdom fungi. I know that. It's embarrassing that I was even temporarily confused about that. Floral Spasm. All the reasons I love this card. One, it's a Spasm. I said that already. Two, it's from Legends. Three, I mean, I like its ability. So right now, the old school deck I have, it's a mono green old school deck. It's pretty much a standard mono green old school deck. If you look up DFB mono green, you'll get an idea of what I'm trying to build. Pretty much that minus the Chaos Orb and the uh, not the Cities of Brass. What's the Arabian Nights card that kills all Arabian Nights cards?
Oh, city in a bottle?
City in a Bottle. Minus the Chaos Orb and the City in a Bottle because I don't have either one of those. They're too expensive.
Okay.
Pretty much standard mono green.
But you
But
need artifact removal. Is that where you're
I,
going?
I want artifact removal, yeah. And I
Yeah.
have, I'm running 4 crumble,
Hmm.
maybe 3 crumble, one on the sideboard. I'm running crumbles. But it's not bad to have more artifact removal, especially for when you're playing like against fully powered decks in old school. It's always good to have more options to get rid of Moxes to eliminate their mana base, especially in this deck, which has Ice Storms and Strip Mines. So I focus on attacking their mana base. But again, if you're playing a fully powered deck, they have Lotus and Moxes,
Yeah.
Soul Ring. That strategy isn't always as effective if you don't also have ways to get rid of their artifacts. So I like Floral
Gotcha.
Spasm that it's a potentially repetitive artifact removal, but again, you're running into one of these creatures that has to attack and not be blocked before it has the removal effect,
It's
which
tough. Yeah.
it's tough. This brings me to the next reason why I wanted to run it. Because I'm running multiple Mazes of Ith in this old school deck too. And this is one of those cards that I believe, somebody can tell me if I'm wrong, but I believe you could take advantage of this ability with Maze of Ith. If it attacks opponent and is not blocked, then
Oh,
it may choose to destroy a target artifact under that opponent's control and deal no damage. So,
according to that text, I would say you're correct. I wonder if
yes,
there's anything that's changed, but
don't think so.
whenever Floral Spasm attacks and isn't blocked, you may destroy target artifact defending player controls. If you do, it assigns no combat damage. So yeah, as long as it attacks and it isn't blocked, okay.
So I believe I can attack with the Floral Spasm, use Maze of Ith to remove it from combat, and destroy target artifact on the other
Yeah,
side of the
that's
board.
smart, actually. Wow.
So I enjoy that. Fucking genius. I've actually never seen anybody do that before.
Really?
Probably because nobody plays Floral Spasm. I have heard other people talk about doing similar things though with Farrell's Mantle. We talked about that on an episode. I can't remember when. very
I don't
briefly.
remember that.
Pharaoh's Mantle is a Fallen Empire's enchant creature.
Yes, I
Two,
remember this card. Yeah, okay.
two colorless, one white. If targeted creature attacks and is not blocked, it may deal X+2 damage to any other target creature, where X is the power of the creature. Pharaoh's Mantle enchants.
Nice, okay.
So some people have used this in decks with Maze of Ith
Maze
as
of Ith.
repetitive creature removal. When we mentioned that in an episode, somebody in the comments told me it didn't work. And I wasn't sure why. And I went to the Maze of Ith Gatherer entry and read it again. And then I responded with a quote of this entry on Gatherer and asked, "Are you sure? It sure seems like to me like it should work," but I never got a response. So if you look Maze of Ith up on Gatherer, 12/18/2022. So these are very recent rulings. They were added to the Gatherer website just a couple years ago, which is unusual, right? I mean, most of the things I look up on Gatherer are old. I didn't even know they were still updating this website. But 2022, these rulings were either added or updated on the Gatherer website. And this one in particular says the creature isn't removed from combat. It just has its damage prevented. It's still an attacking creature until the combat phase is complete. So it's not removed from combat. It's still an attacking creature. Sure seems to me like if you were to attack with a Floral Spasm or a creature enchanted with Pharaoh's Mantle and then use Maze of Ith to remove it from combat, you should still benefit from the effects of these two cards because it attacked and was not blocked.
Yes.
Know what I'm
I'm
saying?
only the only thing I'm trying to think of now is if you're going to get the opportunity to use the Maze of Ith at the right time in order to do that. Because it has to be
Declare Floral Spasm as an attacker. Somebody then declares a blocker.
Yeah,
Say they
well,
try
okay,
to
so
block with
you'd
it.
have to do it. I think you'd have to do it after you declare it as attacker at the end of the declare attacker step and then remove it because once you go to the declare blockers step, that happens like the declaring of the blockers happens at the beginning of the step, I think,
Okay.
right? And then I'm going to confuse myself here.
Either way, it seems like I should be able to do that. Whether or not I have to tap the Maze of Ith before blockers are declared or after blockers are declared and before damage is dealt. Either way, it was. Oh, sorry, that's not either way. I have to remove it from combat with the Maze of Ith before blockers are declared.
Yeah.
That's very clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, if Floral Spasm attacks an opponent and is not blocked. But that
Yes,
seems
thank you for
straightforward. That seems straightforward to do to me. Attack with a declare Floral Spasm as attacker, tap my Maze of Ith, remove it from combat.
Yeah, I think you can do that.
Yeah. I'm going to be spasming all over everybody. Floral Spasm. I also picked up a desert, Alex.
Nice. I have one desert.
I was
I
inspired
enjoy
to
it.
pick up a desert because I've been watching some of the recent videos posted on Timmy the Sorcerer's YouTube channel. He's showing some of the games from Dad BodCon. And Dad BodCon, I can't remember exactly what the format was, but it included shit. What was Dad BodCon? For some there was some change. It's not the typical old school card pool. So people are playing a lot of cards from some of the Four Horsemen sets that don't usually get play. They don't make it in the deck because they're replaced by other things that aren't allowed to be played in this particular tournament. So you're seeing some things like Desert get some shine. And I'm like, yeah, it's nice to have a Desert every once in a while, certain decks. So I bought a
Picked it
Desert.
up because it's just like a pretty cheap card and a easy way to get some like old Arabian Nights artwork, you know?
That's the main reason I got it too. Yeah. Uh, Anything from Arabian Nights, if it's available for a few bucks, I'd like to have a play set of it. And I did that for a little while. I picked up a few cheap Arabian Nights playsets and I kind of stopped. Haven't bought anything from Legends or Arabian Nights for many, many months now, probably like 6+ months. So I wanted to get back into that. I also purchased a couple mobilizations. We've been talking about some white weenie builds. I've been thinking about putting mobilizations in them. I keep realizing I don't have mobilizations. I keep forgetting to buy them, so now I got two. I bought myself a worship, Alex, not a wonder.
Ah,
I'm gonna get this right. I'm not gonna call this card Wonder any longer. I got my worship again for a white weenie build I'm working on. I bought a chaos confetti. I got to get back to
oh,
this for a while.
oh.
Every time I was placing an order, I was purchasing one chaos confetti as well. I'm trying to corner the market on chaos confettis. If anybody out there has chaos confettis, you have game nights where you get together with your buddies, you rip up the chaos confettis and you toss them all over the place because it's fun. I'm encouraging that. Rip them all.
Rip them all.
And then I bought a couple other cards. I bought a few endless worms. Endless
Yes,
worms.
nice. Good
Because
one.
I'm buying some big green. I don't know if you know this, Alex, because you don't listen to the podcast as much as I do, like all the other pre-modern podcasts and stuff. But big green is all the rage right now. People are building the decks that I wanted to build probably like a year and a half ago and just never did. Because I don't have City of Traders and I didn't have Ancient Tombs and I didn't really like to proxy all that much back then. So I just never put these decks together. But they're they're getting a lot of hype at the moment. Not necessarily with Endless Worm. Can't remember all the cards that are going into these decks. We'll have to get into it at some point in not too distant future. But they're just building decks focused on getting big creatures out as fast as possible with all the soul lands, the lands that generate multiple colors mana with one tap. Ancient Tomb, City of Traders, to get
Okay,
out fat bodies fast.
okay.
So I'm just going through and trying to see all the big fat bodies in green that I don't own yet that are still cheap and just pick them up. So I got a place at Endless Worms.
There's a
This is
couple worms.
three colorless, two green, 9/9 trample during your upkeep. Sacrifice an enchantment or sacrifice Endless Worms. Other reason I got this too is because I'm playing a lot around with enchantments a lot too and thinking of different white green enchantment focused builds that still kill with creatures. And this would be a pretty nice one. uh, to have with some of the enchantments that I'm enjoying right now, like Imperial Armor or Spirit Link or Rancor,
I
especially.
was gonna say Rancor, yeah, 'cause then it comes back.
Rancor,
Some other
especially.
things like with this in green, you can use something like Exploration or like even Wild Growth or some type of like ramp type enchantment to get this out quick and then sacrifice that enchantment to it.
Yeah, very much. It's a mono green, like a mono green enchantress build with wild growths, rancors, and like big fat creatures to ramp out would be pretty fun.
Hmm.
It would not be the most optimal enchantment build, but it'd be pretty fun. It would be the kind of magic I like to play. So I bought some endless worms, and I've also bought some Nantuko monasteries. Again, because I've been thinking about white green, different things I can do in white green. Also, I swear Sam Black wrote an article maybe over a year ago now where Nantuko was mentioned. Nantuko Monastery was mentioned as one of the cards that maybe should be getting a little bit more play in pre-modern. So I picked them up for 25 cents. I think I got them for 19 cents. It's a pretty cool little land. Tap to add one colorless to your mana pool. When you have Threshold, you can pay one green and one white, and it becomes a 4/4 green and white creature with first strike until end of turn. It's still a land.
Okay.
When I was playing with Kyle and Ryan from Ohio a couple weeks ago, too, Kyle was also running some Nantuko Monasteries. I liked the card.
Okay.
I got to say, I'm very unhappy with the person that I bought the Endless Worms and the Nantuko Monasteries from. Very unhappy. There are some people on TCG Player, Alex, I swear, they just got no respect for cards that are under $20. I mean, 20 cents. The cheap cards, they list them as near mint or light play, and they come with scuffs and scrapes and bends all over them. And I know they do this on purpose. I know they have a shit cheap card that is in terrible condition, and they list it as the lowest price, and they figure, I know this card is fucked up. I know it's not light play. I know it's not near mint, but who's going to send it back? It's 19 cents or it's 15 cents. Well, guess what? You son of a... I might. I'm probably not going to because I have other things to deal with at the moment. I have a lot of stuff going on in my life. I started a new job. Also, my identity was stolen. I'm busy. I'm busy, but you're lucky I'm busy because otherwise I would take the time to send this shit back to you. But just know that I'm very unhappy. Also, I bought two snake pits, Alex,
Snake Pit.
because I'm buying snake cards because I want to make a shit pre-modern deck called Snakes on a Playmat. And when I posted that online, Phil Wynn, who writes the MTG banding uh, newsletter, who comes up with all sorts of sweet brews, he said, "Oh, I had a deck already called Snakes on a Plane." I was like, "How am I going to make snakes on a plane? I can't make snakes on a plane, so let me just call it Snakes on a Playmat." Phil made Snakes on a Plane, and he made a snakes fly.
Plain?
No, snakes on a. I don't think so. Snakes on a
Oh.
Plane, and he made them fly with wonder.
Oh, okay. You could do snakes on a Plain and
I
like
could do that
give them land
actually.
walking or something, you know.
That's good. Snakes on a plane. Maybe I'll
I
do
think there's
that.
only like two planeswalking cards, like in all Magic.
But Snake Pit is 3 colorless, 1 green enchantment. Whenever an opponent plays a blue or black spell, you may pay 1/1. You may put a 1/1 green snake creature token into play. So I just thought
I
putting
like
one in
that.
my
I'm
thought of
pretty sure I've
putting
seen it before, and it was like at a time when it wasn't what I was looking for whatever I was, doing.
okay.
Uh, but that's a pretty fun card.
I think I bought them for like 50 cents. So there you go, Alex. They're
Certainly
they're
a great commander card. Uh,
they're there for
Good
the taking.
sideboard card.
It's gonna be in my sideboard.
Yeah.
Of my solidly tier, I don't know what Snakes on a Playmat deck, tier 4. Maybe can I get it there? I think I might play with Gaia's Cradle. I have I don't have Gaia's Cradle, but I bought some Gaia's Cradle's proxies, and they're cards like Gaia's Cradle, City of Traders. Now I'm proxying that shit because I want to make these decks. I want to, and you know what? Leave me alone. If I want to proxy my, if I want to proxy my Gaia's Cradle and play it with my fucking Snake Basket, which is my plan, leave me alone.
Yeah, it's like the rest of your deck is pretty weak. It's not as bad to like put in a proxy of a strong card.
I'm playing Snake Basket, bitches. Let me proxy Gaia's Cradle. That's what I've been up to.
Nice.
One more thing, actually. I wasn't able to attend the Columbus Premodern monthly meetup uh, this past week because I got a new job, and unfortunately, I walked into another terrible situation that's requiring me to work overtime all the time, so I wasn't able to make it. I say unfortunately. I'm very happy to have this job, but I'm finding myself in a position where I'm responding to another infectious disease outbreak again. I keep finding myself in these situations. So I don't have as much time to drive to north of Columbus for the monthly Columbus Premodern meetup, but the guys got together last week and we got some big news. They came up with a name for the crew.
Oh,
This is not the official announcement yet. This is not the official announcement because I'm still trying to figure out exactly how it's being presented. But we are Retromancers. This is our official crew card. Are we just Retromancers or are we the Retromancers? Will there be a the, Alex? Perhaps yes, perhaps no. This is a major point of contention with many things here in Columbus. Is it the Ohio State University or is it just Ohio State University? Are we the Retromancers? Are we just Retromancers? I need to work this out with the guys before I make the official announcement on the podcast, but I believe we are just Retromancers. This is going to be our card. It's quite a lovely card, I think, for several reasons. Number one being that it's weird. Number two being that it's incredibly cheap. So we can buy as many copies of Retromancer as we want
yeah.
and stamp them if we ever get a stamp. That's very exciting to me. I like the idea of potentially being able to do that. This is Retromancer from Urza's Saga. It's 2 colors, 2 red, summon via Shino. I like that it's a via Shino.
Hmm.
3/3. Whenever Retromancer is the target of a spell or ability, it deals 3 damage to that spell or ability's controller. So it's not a card that gets any play, which means we'll be able to, stack as many copies as we want. I got some in the mail. I also like just the flavor of it for like an old school or a pre-modern play group. Retromancer
Uh-huh.
is also an individual that likes to sleeve up vintage old frame cardboard and can play community-driven Magic the Gathering formats. So we are Retromancers. That's all that's been going on in my Magic the Gathering life the past 2 weeks, Alex. If you don't have anything else you want to say here, let's move on to segment one. Are you ready for segment one, Alex? Excellent. Segment one, we're going to discuss Rebels in the year 2000. In the year 2000. In the year 2000. In the year 2000, Rebels were doing work. They were doing work. Were you going to sing too?
I did. I was waiting for the higher pitched
Oh,
2000
okay.
to come in on that one.
Rebels were doing some work in the year 2000, specifically at Pro Tour Chicago, which was a standard format tournament. It's a PT that we've discussed on the podcast before, Alex. I don't know if you remember that, but it's a PT where 5 sets were legal, a PT. 5 sets legal at this PT. 6th edition, Arcadian Masks, Nemesis, Prophecy, and Invasion. This is a PT where Fires was running rampant.
Oh yeah, I remember this is the one that had the no fires, but it was fires,
Yes.
right?
It was no Fires. It's exactly what it says it is, Alex.
Oh,
No
okay, okay.
Fires.
It is
Which
actually no fires.
I thought it was Fires too. I was like, my memory was that he called it no Fires, but there was actually Fires in there, but no.
Well,
He
was
was
it a
being,
similar deck with just
yes,
without the fires? Yeah, okay, that's
yes.
why I remember that.
The top 8 PT Chicago, starting with number 8, My Fires, piloted by Zvi Mauschewitz. Alex, we recorded a 374-part series on Zvi's Fires earlier in the podcast. He wrote this long article. We went through it.
I remember that.
Number 7 was Mono Blue by J. LRR. This deck looked very usual to me. We need to talk about this more someday. It's a pre-modern era Blue Skies deck, which I hadn't come across yet till I saw this list. In 6th place, you had another Fires deck piloted by Michael Pustelnik. We've talked about him on a very early episode of the podcast when we were talking
Hmm.
about The Rock. He won some major tournaments with The Rock. There's Fires by John Finkel. We talked about John Finkel's Forbidian probably like 6 months ago. He played Fires in PT Chicago in the year 2000. And then there's No Fires by Brian Kibler, a deck with many of the creatures seen in other Fires decks, but no Fires. And also no Sapling Burst, which just doesn't pack the same kind of punch when you don't have Fires to burst it out right away.
Okay.
This deck is kind of famous for running Rith the Awakener with Armadillo Cloak, which
Yes,
came in from the sideboard. Alex loves that.
I do.
Why don't I do that? I've had a Fires deck that I just never play, and I keep changing the cards that go in, and I really just want to play Rith. So I just need to just put Rith in it. And then number 3, you had Fires by Rob Doherty. And that brings us to the championship match, the top 2 decks. You had 2 decks that rose above all the Fires in this meta. Both were Rebels decks. Coming in 2nd place, you had a counter Rebels with Kamiel Cornelissen. And in 1st place, you had Rebels by Kai Budde. Today, we're going to talk about those decks. Brief refresher on how Rebels decks work. We talked a lot about it last episode, but basically they're white weenie decks or white weenie decks with a splash, some other color. Rebels are a creature clan. You get your rebels out. They can recruit other rebels. So you can play one rebel, activate its ability to search through your deck, recruit another rebel, directly into play. So the rebel cards they search for go directly into play. And they can recruit higher casting cost rebels. So they really chain upward. So once you get this started, it's an engine that just keeps generating more creatures on the battlefield every turn, and creatures that get progressively stronger every turn.
Mm-hmm.
I want to start with Counter Rebels by Cornelissen. This is a weenie-based creature deck that ran that Rebel recruitment engine, and it also just had counter magic to, deal with opposing threats to help regulate the board. Counter something is a very common style of deck you see across all sorts of formats and all sorts of metas. Take something aggressive that's powerful, that's printed, pair it with a permission package, a counterspell package. And that's what Counter Rebels basically is. There's 13 creatures in this deck. There are 2 Defiant Falcons. This is a flyer and a Rebel recruiter. There's 2 Defiant Vanguards that can deal with opposing big boys. When it blocks at end of combat, you destroy it and anything that it blocks. So if they get something particularly problematic on the other side of the board, and you have this around as a blocker, you can kind of prevent it from crushing you, from stampeding all over you. Jovial Queen, one of the biggest creatures in the format at the time, not as big by pre-modern standards, but in mass block, a 4/7 was hard to deal with. 2 Lin Civies, this was the crown jewel of the Rebels. And as we learned last week, a critical card to cast first in the mirror match. We learned a little bit about how the legend rule had changed throughout the years. And at this time, the way the legend rule worked was once one legendary creature was on the battlefield, you couldn't play another one.
Okay, yeah. So it was locking out your opponent if you got it
Yeah.
first. Yeah.
It's changed. It's changed over the years. There were some times where if you played one legendary creature, your opponent could still play theirs, but then yours would be eliminated. So sometimes legendary permanents would like blow other legendary permanents off the board.
Mm-hmm.
Or there were times where like if you had 2 in your deck, one on the battlefield, one in your hand, you could still play the second one in your hand, but then the first one that you had on the battlefield would just be put into the graveyard. At this particular time, when one legendary permanent hit the battlefield, that was it. So it was critical to get the Lin Civi out first. Ramosian Sergeant, which I think of as first gear of your recruitment engine because it's a 1-drop,
Yeah.
1/1, pay 3 colorless, tap, and then you can search and recruit 2 casting cost or less rebels onto the battlefield. 1 Ramosian Sky Marshal, which can recruit that Jovial Queen.
Okay. Yep.
And then 1 Rebel Informer, which a key piece in the mirror match. 2 colorless, 1 black, 1/2 Rebel Informer can't be the target of white spells or abilities. Pay 3 colorless, put target rebel card on the bottom of its owner's library. I talked about people splashing black in their decks to cast this last episode. I don't know why I said that. Of course, that's one of the great things about Rebels. You can recruit with colorless mana. So yes, you
Yeah.
could splash black in your deck, but you don't need to. You can recruit the Informer with other Rebels just by paying colorless mana. And that's what most people that played the Informer in this era did. They didn't bother playing black. They just recruited it onto the battlefield. Another key thing to point out, I didn't mention last time, but to activate this ability to put target rebel cards on the bottom of owners' libraries, you don't have to tap it. So you could activate this more than
Oh,
once.
that's nice. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes it a lot
You have
stronger.
6 mana, you get rid of 2 of their rebels.
Exactly.
I think the guy in the picture in the foreground of that card, whose face is only half there,
Mm-hmm.
looks like Paul Rudd.
I won't say no to that.
Okay. Ear's a little bit different. He has kind of like a weird ear. You know,
Yeah.
if his ear was a
Well, I
little
mean,
higher, a little
we
more
gotta
in, it'd be,
find we gotta find a picture of Paul Rudd with an earring too.
yeah,
I don't know.
like a pirate hoop.
Yeah. So those are the creatures. That's the creature package. 3 sorceries. It's to deal with opposing creatures. This meta was pretty much fires, blue skies with a lot of blue flyers, and then other rebels decks. So you were dealing with a lot of creatures coming your way. So the sorceries are 2 Wrath of God and 1 Rout, which I wasn't familiar with, but it's very similar to Wrath of God. It's 3 colorless, 2 white sorcery, but you can play Rout at any time. You could play an instant if you pay 2 colorless more to play it. Destroy all creatures. They can't be regenerated. So if you
Okay.
got a lot of mana around, it's a Wrath of God at instant speed. And then instants, you have 4 Absorb, which is counter target spell, and you gain 3 life. There was a cool group of cards like this from Invasion that were counter spells plus some other effect.
Yeah.
And that effect changed depending on what colored mana they required in addition to the 2 blue for the counter spell. You had 4 Brainstorm, 4 counter spell, 1 Disenchant, 2 Dismantling Blows, which is a common from Invasion, 2 colorless. Not Invasion. This is Invasion. Is this Invasion? It
That's
is.
invasion, yeah.
Yeah. 2 colorless, 1 white. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. But it has a kicker. 2 colorless, 1 blue. If you paid the kicker cost, you can draw 2 cards.
Okay.
So it's an
Does
expensive
this deck have a
disenchant.
way to get like a lot more mana at some point, or is it just kind of counting on the
Not
game being long?
no, not really.
Okay.
Uh, that's what I thought too. I'm like, there are a lot of cards in here that are like heavy on mana. I guess
Not
they're
that it's
just
like prohibitive like that, like prohibitively like that. I was just curious if there was like a any kind of big mana generator.
there is not.
There's 26 lands though.
I was just gonna say, but there are 26 lands, and you'll see that a lot with the Rebel decks because they're mana intensive. You want to get that recruitment chain going, they're mana intensive. You got to feed a lot of mana into them.
Plus, since they tutor, like you can use whichever one to get whichever one or to start the chain. So I could see it working with as long as you're getting like one rebel, you can start it going.
Yeah. This card was pretty cool. After the dismantling blow, the instant he ran was 1 Dominate. It's 1 colorless, 2 blue X. Gain control of target creature with converted mana cost X or less.
Huh.
So if you're trying to steal a 1 casting cost creature,
Hmm.
it's control magic at instant speed. Anything above a 1 casting cost creature, you got to feed. It's more expensive than a control magic. I like the fact that it's not an enchantment, it's an instant, so it can't be disenchanted. Once you've dominated something, it's yours.
Yes.
Your opponent, if they want to get off the board, they have to kill it. They have to use some of their resources to kill it.
And this and the big board wipe that you can cast at instant speed, like but you have 2 cards that are kind of big finishers for you if you want to
Yeah,
surprise your opponent.
yeah. And then 2 Factor Fiction. 3 colors, 1 blue
Okay.
instant. Reveal the top 5 cards of your library. An opponent separates those cards into 2 face-up piles. Put 1 pile in your hand and the other into the graveyard, making your opponent make decisions. And then 26 lands. 4 Added Carways, 4 Coastal Towers, 10 Islands, 10 Plains. The sideboard was kind of interesting to me. He ran 2 Circle of Protection greens. I'm assuming these are in the sideboard for fires. A lot of the creatures that come at you in the fires decks. I mean, there's Flametongue Kavu, which is red, so that's not going to deal with that. But this is going to deal with Blastoderm, so you can hold off Blastoderm until it fades out. It's going to hold off Saproling Burst if they have Saproling Burst bursting in your face. Protect yourself with the Cop Green. Rith is red and green, so this can be used against Rith.
Okay.
Although Rith can then make so many tokens, if he hits you once, then you're probably not going to have enough mana to protect yourself from everything that's big coming your way. So Rith is still going to be a problem. But it deals with the Blastoderms. What else is it? What else are the big fires creatures? There's of course some people ran Jade Leech, which is a green 5/5. But it deals with probably like half or more of the problematic Fire's creatures. So I'm assuming that's why.
Do the Fire's
Uh,
decks run any green spells that deal damage?
Not that I remember, or not that I saw. The rest of the sideboard is just additional copies of other things. Disenchant, more Dominate, more Fact or Fiction, more Rout, more Wrath of God. He also runs 2 Magita the Lions, which is a pretty cool card. 3 colorless, 2 white, 3/3, Spell Shaper Legend. He's a Wrath of God on a stick. 2 colorless, pay 2 colorless and 2 white, tap them. Discard 2 cards from your hand, destroy all creatures except for Magita the Lion. Those creatures can't be regenerated. So slow, mana intensive, but if you can get this guy to wipe the board for you, you're in a pretty strong position after that.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have a 3/3 on the board. They're going to have no blockers. And if they can't get rid of this, everything they try to cast can be one-sided wrath away.
Hmm.
So it's a slow card, but it's very strong. And then Prohibit.
And if you have, running 26 lands, you could easily have some spare lands to pitch to this
Later
for
in the
its
game, yeah.
activation cost.
And then there's Prohibit, which I picked some of these up from a bulk bin recently, and it's a counter spell that I don't see play very often. And I wonder, do I ever want to put this in my deck? I'm not sure.
I
I
know
gotta
I
think
have some
about.
of these. I'm trying to remember the old artwork.
Is there an old artwork? Is this not the?
Oh, nope. You know what? I'm wrong. This was
Okay.
the first time it was printed. I'm
Okay.
just wrong.
It's 1 colorless, 1 blue, instant. Counter target spell if its converted mana cost is 2 or less. If you paid the kicker cost, counter that spell if its converted mana cost is 4 or less instead. So it's a kicker of 2.
Hmm.
So it's not a strong counter. It's a conditional counter, but
I like
still
that it. Sorry, go ahead.
still pretty good. That's all I was going to say.
Yeah, I like that it's. I like that it's. Like it for sure counters the spell as opposed to something like a mana leak or whatever that they can pay extra mana to get around. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I shouldn't have said that it's not a strong counter because it is a strong counter. That's exactly what you described. But it's limited in the number of cards it can count. It can
Yeah,
be
yeah,
cast against. I should
yeah,
say
yeah,
that instead.
for
When I
sure.
said it's not a strong counter, I was thinking more along the lines of cards like Mana Leak. But this is not like that, as you pointed out.
I understood what you meant though.
Okay. So that's the counter Rebels deck. It's a creature came blacked up with counterspell and library sorting package. Always a solid idea. Like whatever format you're sitting down to play, you can always build a decent deck like this. When you think, okay, what's the most aggressive creature clan in this format? And then let me pair it with some counterspells. Just recruit your rebels, counter anything that tries to disrupt your arcane plan or that you can't eliminate with your removal.
And you have board wipes in case you didn't have the counters when you needed them.
Yeah, exactly. It's always a good backup plan. So that's the second place deck. In first place, we had Rebels by Kai Budde. And this Rebels deck is even more creature heavy. I look at this and I think the goal is to establish a board state faster. And then instead of playing a counter game, he plays a mana denial game.
Oh,
So
okay.
22 creatures. Try to get creatures out as fast as possible. He runs some of the same creatures. 2 Defiant Falcon. Uh, 2 Defiant Falcon. 2 Defiant Vanguard. 4 Lin Civies. Defiant
Okay.
Hero. Which, to be honest, I was a little bit confused by the fact that the other deck didn't run 4 Lin Civies. In a meta where, well, first of all, Lin Civi is just like the crown jewel of the rebels, of the
Right.
recruiters,
Yeah, you want to get this card.
because you can use it to search for any other rebel in your deck. You can also use it to take rebels that have been put into your graveyard, get them back into your library so you can search them up again. So yeah, you want to get this card. But especially in this meta where there were so many rebels, there were so many mirror matches, and the legend rule works the way it did, you want to get your Lin Civi out first. So running 4 Lin Civis in your deck increases the odds that you're going to get it out on the board before an opponent that's running 3 or 2 or 1 Linsiphies.
Yeah.
So I would want to maximize Linsiphies. That's what Kai Budde did. 3 Longbow Archer, which is a card that I love to see. It's a 2/2 for 2 with a special ability. You know I love 2/2s for 2 with a special ability, Alex. You
I
know
love
that.
this card. This is a great card.
You know that about me. It is a great card. 2 white, 2/2 Summon Archer, first strike. Longbow Archer can block creatures with flying. 2 special abilities, actually. Why do you put this deck or this card in the deck? It confused me a little bit. But then I remembered in the top 8 there was a Blue Skies deck.
Yeah.
And when I read some other articles that were written about this Pro Tour from the same time, they went a little bit beyond just the top 8. And the rest of the tournament was very much still dominated by Rebels and Fires. But Blue Skies was a significant part of the meta. So you have the Longbow Archer to block a lot of the 1/1s and the 2/2s that were in Blue Skies decks.
Okay.
That's one reason. I also like the fact that it's not a rebel. And you would say, why would you like the fact that it's not a rebel, Steve? Rebels are supposed to recruit other rebels. Well,
Well, then they can't screw you with the one black rebel we just looked
they
at.
can't screw you with the rebel informer. So in the mirror match, you actually have a solid non-rebel creature that can't be targeted by the rebel informer. You're so smart, Alex. You picked that up right off the bat. I had to think about that for a little while. And then you got 4 Ramosian sergeants,
Yep.
2 Ramosian sky marshals,
Okay.
which you'll notice here, no Jovial Queen.
Yes. Yeah.
When we were going over the clan the other day, last week, 2 weeks ago, I was like, why do you run the Sky Marshal? To recruit the Jovial Queen. Well, that's not why Kai ran it. He put 2 copies of Ramosian Sky Marshal in his deck with no Jovial Queen. So I think I overlooked the possibility that this just has good utility as an attacker with with evasion, or again, even a blocker when you're facing Blue Skies decks potentially. It's still a 3/3 flyer. It's expensive.
Yeah. It's expensive, but you can tutor for it. So yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, you can tutor for it, and it's still a 3/3 flyer. And then you have 1 Rebel Informer. Again, the rebel that targets other rebels. Puts them on the bottom of its owner's library. After that, we got 3 Steadfast Guards and 1 Thermal Glider. Thermal Glider was the 2/1 pro red flyer.
Okay.
Steadfast Guard, another one I didn't like when we were going through the Rebel crew last episode. It's 2/2 with Vigilance. Attacking doesn't cause it to tap, but it's solid.
Yeah.
It's
Nothing wrong with it for sure. Yeah.
nothing wrong with it at all. It is a 2/2 for 2 with a special ability. I just
Yeah.
said I love those. Instance, 4 Wax Wayne. I think this is a good and mana efficient option to get rid of fires. Can't target artifacts too. It's not a disenchant, but what he was probably mostly worried about was fires and sapling bursts. The 2 enchantments that he was facing the most. Here you can destroy him with 1 mana. If you're not facing either one of those, you have the wax. That's the Wayne side. You have the wax portion of the card that can buff your creatures. +2/+2 for 1 green.
Yeah, that's nice utility with that card because, yeah, like you said, if you don't need the white side, the green side always comes in handy.
Mm-hmm. The only artifacts are 4 Chimeric Idols.
Okay.
This is an artifact from this era that we saw in some of the fire stacks that we talked about a long time ago. 3 colorless. Activate with 0 mana. Tap all lands you control. Chimeric Idol becomes a 3/3 artifact creature until end of turn. I think in a meta where you had a lot of wraths running around, a lot of creature board wipes, even some that you were running yourself in some
Uh-huh.
cases, although he doesn't have wrath. I think it's nice to have this card uh, that is an artifact that can become a creature. But, it's not susceptible to Wrath of God.
Yeah.
Because when you're attacking with it, that's on your turn. Your opponent can't cast Wrath of God on your turn, although they do have the route available to them. But I'm assuming most people ran Wrath of God. So, something that's going to survive a Wrath. And then to deal with opposing creatures, he ran Parallax Wave, which we're seeing the power of these Parallax cards, especially now in Premodern. They were always powerful. Two colorless, two white, enchantment, fading 5. Remove a fade counter from Parallax Wave. Remove target creature from the game. When it leaves play, each player returns to play all cards he or she owns removed from the game with Parallax Wave. So you can temporarily remove creatures from the battlefield. And now this is a real key to his deck. Again, he ran 26 lands because, as we know, Rebels are mana intensive. 4 brush lands, 16 plains, and then you see 4 Rishodon ports and 2 Dust Bowls. So this is really important because mana denial was like a critical part of his strategy with this deck.
Yeah, I love that. That's great.
If he just gets a little bit ahead in land, he opens up space between his and opponent, him and his opponent, and then he just, with the port and the Dust Bowl, you can extend that distance. You can put them even further behind.
Hmm.
Also, if you get to 6 mana first with Rebel Informer out, you can put 2 Rebels back into their library for every one. So, if you can get rid of some of their land while putting more of your land on the board, I think that's critical. Whoever gets to 6 mana first with the Rebel Informer can outpace the recruitment ability of their opponent,
Yeah.
if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because they'll recruit 1 Rebel per turn. You're putting 2 back into their deck if you can get ahead of them on mana.
Hmm.
Sideboard, 4 Armageddons, which is a white card that I just don't run often enough. 1 Defiant Vanguard, 1 Lightbringer. So this is tap, sacrifice Lightbringer, remove target black creature from the game. What did we see last episode? Lightbringer and Dawnbringer? I can't remember if they target. I think they
Sounds
target
right.
black and red creatures, I think.
Yeah.
3 Majida the Lions, the Wrath of God on a Stick. 3 Seal of Cleansings, more enchantment removal for Wraths and Sapling Bursts, and then 3 Wrath of God. So similar to Cornelissen's deck, but more creatures and mana denial. I think what he's really going for here is establish your attacking board state a little bit faster and then lock down the land to the best of your ability with port
Mhm. I
or
like that
with
you have
dust.
something you can do with all these lands. If with 26 land, if you're getting too many lands early on, you can, pump that mana into the ports, pump the mana and the lands into the Dust Bowl. Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm trying to remember if the previous deck had anything else to do with excess lands other than pitch them to Majida the Lion.
I mean, other than recruiting, that's the thing with rebels. Like you always have something. Always have a rebel to feed your mana into.
I
You can
guess you're
always
right. You
be
can always
recruiting
just
more
keep
things.
pumping excess mana into them. So
You could always be recruiting more things, although you probably don't. I mean, that's a dangerous game to play, especially if a lot of people are playing wraths.
yeah.
So, uh, but also if you have your rebel informer out faster, you have more mana than them. Of course, you're in a good position. But these two decks faced each other in the top 2 in the championship match of PT Chicago. Luckily, you can actually watch most of this match on YouTube to this day. To this day, Alex.
To this day.
I thought I saw this somewhere a while back, and then I couldn't find it. And then I asked social medias, and Samuel Lang on Blue Sky came through, and he gave me the link. So you
Oh,
can
sweet.
watch this. You can watch this match. It's on the YouTube channel of Slobad123, SLOBAD123. Only has 66 subscribers. Finals of 2000 Pro Tour Chicago on ESPN2. This is back in the day. I remember this time when we played Magic for a little while, and all of a sudden it started appearing on ESPN, and I was like,
Yeah, we're
what
like,
the
what?
fuck? They don't show the whole thing, so it was a best of 5, but they show a lot. Kai won it in just 3 games. Just 3 games. I did 4 fingers when I was saying 3, but he won it in just 3 games. Key moments to point out. You can watch this whole video. I'm not going to watch the whole video right now, but game 1, Budde cast Lin Civi first. We talked about how important that is. After casting Lin Civi first, Cornelissen can't play his Lin Civi. Then he recruits Rebel Informer. So it's looking bad for Cornelissen. That's what you want. Lin Civi and then Rebel Informer, and he has 5 mana when he does that. Turn after that, he gets his 6th land. What can you do when you have 6 lands and Rebel Informer in play?
You can send away 2 rebels.
You can send away 2 of your opponent's rebels. That's what he did. So, I mean, Cornelissen was in a terrible, terrible position in game 1. 5 minutes later, I'm surprised it lasted all that long. Looks like it's all over until next turn. Cornelissen cast Dominate. Dominate on the Rebel Informer.
Oh.
So he had enough mana to cast Dominate, steal Budde's Rebel Informer, but by the point he pulled that card, by the point he top decked that card, Cornelissen was already at 6 life. Budde had a fairly full hand at that point. So he was like, that's fine. You got my Rebel Informer. I've kind of already outrun you, buddy. So he just started dropping his hand. He had multiple creatures in his hand. Next turn, he played 3 more creatures for a total of 5 on the board. He just needed 1 attack, and he was going to deal more than 6 damage. It was going to be lethal. What happened next, Alex?
Wrath of God.
Cornelissen cast Rout, which is that Wrath of God-like card. The board was reset. I thought he was going to make a comeback. Turn after that, Budde cast Lin Civi again. The crowd erupted. They literally erupted. There were applause. That's the advantage of having 4 in your deck. He was able to cast 2 Lin Civi before Cornelissen ever got 1 on the board. At this point, he also had 3 ports in play. So he just spent the rest of the game keeping Cornelissen's white mana tapped down.
Yeah.
So another Wrath couldn't hit the board. And he just pinged him away. And that wrapped up game 1. So key cards, Lin Civi hitting first. That's why you want to have 4. Got his Rebel Informer out with 6 mana. And then Rishadan Port to tap down all the white mana of Cornelissen. So even if he was drawing Rebels, he couldn't get them. He couldn't even cast them. Game 2 wasn't on the broadcast. They just said it was quick and decisive for Budde. So Budde was up 2-0. Game 3 started like 5 or 6 turns into the game. Budde had 6 mana, 5 cards in his hand, and Magita the Lion on the board. So he's just sitting there pretty with almost a full hand and a Wrath of God on a stick on the board. 3 of the lands were ports. So again, Rishadan ports, locking down his opponent's mana base. He activated Magita, wiped all the other creatures off the board, and then he was just attacking with Magita, using the ports to tap down Cornelis's 4 blue mana sources, so he couldn't do a lot of things. He couldn't cast any of his counter magic and his library sorting spells. He couldn't dominate anything. After a couple more turns of that, Budde just played an Armageddon, and then there was no recovering after that. He wasn't going to build back before Budde dealt lethal. So he just conceded. Budde wins 3-0. So that's how Budde won a PT in 2000 with Rebels.
All right.
Those were the top 2 decks of the time. I was also wondering, after I went through these decks, after I saw some of those videos, wondering what you could do with Rebels today. You could play Rebels in many different formats, probably, but let's talk about Premodern, because that's what I play. I don't know what people do with Rebels in Vintage. I don't know what they do with Rebels in Modern. I don't even care, but I do want to know what they're doing in Premodern. I also think it's probably, that's what I want to play it in, actually. It's the format I want to play it in, because that's the format, that includes the set where Rebels were originally printed and the sets that surrounded those original.
Yeah, it feels at home in
printed Rebels.
Premodern, yeah.
Very much. I've come across a few things so far. So what can you do with Rebels today? You could play it in a deck like this. The deck I'm showing here is a deck by Flippy Boehm, Boehm. Not sure exactly how to pronounce it. I think it's a German name. Playing White Weenie. He played this at the Uthden Troll Cup 3, not in 2001. It was in 2021. The Uthden Troll Cup. I guess they play Premodern there too. I thought of it as an old school tournament. I only know about it because I've seen some gameplay videos on Timmy the Sorcerer's YouTube channel of guys playing different old school decks at the Uthden Troll Cup. This deck came in second place out of a field of 35 pre-modern players, so it did really well. I like this idea. It's not quite a Rebels deck. I would call it a blue-white weenie deck that plays blue-white pre-modern good stuff. I've heard Flippy mentioned on different podcasts before. I know he's a guy that plays a lot of white weenie or maybe even specifically blue-white weenie in pre-modern. So it's something that he's built a lot. He's experimented with a lot, and he's done very well with it. But it does use Remosian Sergeant. So this is the main rebel in the deck, Remosian Sergeant. 17 creatures, 2 Exalted Angel, 4 Meddling Mage, 2 Mothers of Runes. Solid blue-white creatures that you see all the time in blue-white pre-modern. And then you get to 4 Remosian Sergeants. This is the 1/1 1-drop rebel that can tutor other rebels up for 3 colorless as long as they cost 2 mana or less. What do you search for in this deck? The Whipcorder. A lot of times when I see rebels present in pre-modern decks, they will run these 2 rebels. These are the most common rebels I see played in pre-modern, Remosian Sergeant, and then the Whipcorder is usually its most common target. This is a card that I run in my White Weenie, and I've actually considered putting Remosian Sergeants in my White Weenie deck just to tutor up the Whipcorder. It's such a great utility creature, especially these days because so many people are running giant creatures, single giant creatures that deal 20 plus damage in 2 to 3 turns, like huge Terravors that are being oathed out by Phyrexian Dreadnoughts. The Whipcorder can just tap them down for a little while. But that's not all he's doing in this deck. He's not just including Remosian Soldier to tutor up a Whipcorder. I especially like it because this blue-white deck is really a standstill deck. So if you look at the enchantments here, he just has 4 enchantments and it's 4 copies of Standstill, which is 1 white, 1 blue enchantment. When a player plays a spell, sacrifice Standstill. If you do, each of that player's opponents draws 3 cards. So it's a way to generate some card advantage, but only if you can get your opponent to cast a spell before you do. So when you have Standstill out and a recruiter like Remosian Sergeant, you can advance your board state without breaking Standstill.
Yeah.
So I really like that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Like the key, I think what you really want here is to play turn 1 Remosian Sergeant, turn 2 Standstill, then turn 3, you just start recruiting Whipquarters without breaking Standstill, bringing more creatures onto the board without breaking Standstill. In addition to that, this isn't a rebel, but he included a card that also has a tutor-like ability. Not a tutor-like ability, it's a tutor ability.
Yeah, tutor for lands.
Weathered Wayfarer, 1 white, 1/1. It's a cleric, a nomad cleric, but you can pay 1 white and tap it, search your library for a land card, reveal it and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Play this ability only if opponent controls more lands than you. So you can use this just to make, if you miss land drops, just to get another land, keep pace with your opponent, but also you can use it to tutor up, Mishra's Factories and other main lands. So you can continue to build up your creature base, attack your opponent without triggering Standstill. So I like this deck a lot. Blue, white, Standstill deck. I haven't built a Standstill deck yet, played the Standstill deck yet, but I like using these recruiting creatures, one of which is a rebel, to build up like a suite of attackers without breaking Standstill. Eventually, your opponent's going to have to cast something. and then you're going to gain card advantage.
Yeah. And you have a lot of answers to things. You have the meddling mages. You can tap their creatures. You can give your creatures protection from colors. You have counter spells, white removal.
Yeah, it's a blue-white counter something deck.
What's next to the
Not,
Swords to Plowshares?
not a counter rebels deck. This is Stifle.
Oh, okay.
He's running 3 Stifle, 1 Reverent Mantra, 2 Prohibits, 2 Memory Lapse, 2 Disenchant, 2 counter spells. So just a lot of good blue-white instants. Lands, 23 lands, 4 Adarkar Waste, 3 Wastelands, 1 Dust Bowl, 4 Flooded Strands, 2 Island, 4 Mishra's Factory, 2 Plains, 1 Sky Cloud Expanse. In the sideboard, he runs some more Rebels, actually. 2 Defiant Falcons and 2 Lin Civis. So if you want to lean more heavily into the Rebels, you have options here to do it in the sideboard. I'm not sure under like which conditions or for which matches he would want to sideboard these in and what he would take out. I don't know exactly. I have to think about that a little bit more. Some other cards that I don't see that often that I like to see here in the sideboard because they're just some cards that I really enjoy, but I never really end up playing them. Orm's Chant, 1 Orm's Chant. 1 Peacekeeper. During your upkeep, pay 1 colorless, 1 white, or bury it. Creatures cannot attack. It's a 1/1 for 2 colorless, 1 white from Weatherlight. Always a fun card. And then 1 Rootwater Thief also. Steal cards from your opponent's library.
Very nice.
Then after the Rootwater Thief, there's just Silver Knight, 2 Teferi's Responses, 2 Waterfront Bouncers, 1 Wrath of God. Some more blue-white good stuff. I don't have anything in particular I want to do with this deck. I'm not playing this deck right now, but it did make me think a little bit that maybe it'd be fun to try to find some other ways to really lean into the fact that with the Rebels, you don't have to cast your creatures, that you're just putting them on the battlefield with uh, an activated ability. And
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to think like what else I could use that with other than Standstill. I don't have many good ideas right now, but I did find Mana Breach. There's also
I
Mana
like this
Breach from
card.
Exodus.
I have 1 or 2 Mana Breach decks I was trying to work on.
Maybe what if you combined Mana Breach and Standstill? I mean, they don't really go together. It's not like they're the effects that they have on your opponent. They're not like synergistic in any way, but they're both negative effects for your
Yeah,
opponent, which is
they
then
both
good
slow
for
them
you.
down.
2 colorless, 1 blue enchantment. Whenever any player plays a spell, that player returns a land he or she controls to owner's hand. So yeah, you slow them down every time they want to play a spell. Just a little thought. Sphere of Resistance is also floating around a lot of decks right now too, so it doesn't have a detrimental effect on your opponent or a beneficial effect for you, but it does make spells more costly to cast. And again, with Rebels, you're not casting another spell, you're just recruiting more Rebels onto the board. It's an activated ability, so a little something to think about.
I was trying to build a deck with Mana Breach and Chain of Vapor.
Hmm.
It has no creatures. It's all like instants and lands and a couple enchantments.
What's the win con?
Manlands
Okay.
mostly, I think is my idea. Oh, and I have Black Vices too.
I mean, there could be something there. They're both really good cards. You could definitely turn that into something. Exactly
Yeah,
how good it can be made, I don't know, but that's interesting idea.
yeah,
Some a brew to work on.
yeah, something fun.
The other recent deck I found with some rebels, again, it's not a rebel focused deck, but there are some rebels in it. This was also played in a pre-modern tournament. This is a much more recent one, and it is more rebel heavy than this flippy blue-white deck. This one was played by Grantfly. It's counter rebels. I said it wasn't. Did I say it wasn't a rebel focused deck? It is. It's fucking counter rebels. Grantfly playing counter rebels. He played it in the Magic Online Society, July League 2, back in 2024. You got 22 creatures in this one. one Defiant Falcon, two Lin Civies, two Remosian Lieutenants, a Rebel Recruiter, four Remosian Sergeants, a Rebel Recruiter, one Thermal Glider, a Rebel, and four Whip Quarters, a Rebel.
Okay.
In addition to that, because he's playing some blue too, just two really solid white and white blue cards that you see in pretty much every pre-modern deck that plays white and blue. Four Mighty Mage, four Mother of Runes. Just
Uh-huh.
really strong cards.
Yeah.
Instance, you're doing stuff that blue and white does. You got two Disenchant, four Swords to Plowshares. In blue, he's running one Fact and or Fiction, one Memory Lapse, and then four Prohibit. I never really see that mix of counter magic. Four Prohibits and one Memory Lapse out of all the things you
Yeah.
can choose. This is what he went with. It's novel, at least compared to what I've seen before. Not really sure why he made those choices, but it's interesting to me. And then in the enchantments, we have three enchantments, one Aura of Silence, and then two Shared Triumph. Again, this is another card I wasn't expecting to see. If you're going to make a blue-white, good stuff, counter Rebels deck. Shared Triumph. I mean, it makes sense when you're running a clan-based deck. He has a lot of Rebels, so you can give
Yeah.
all your Rebels +1, +1. Not a lot of
Also, he's
other
using
people.
like a fair amount of small rebels too,
Yeah.
instead of trying to get a big one.
Not a lot of other people are running Rebels right now in pre-modern, so
Yeah.
if you choose Rebels, you're probably the only one that's going to benefit from that. You mentioned he was, running a lot of small Rebels. I thought maybe they're in here because he's afraid of what's it called? Engineered Plague.
Oh,
This is an issue sometimes with a Goblins deck and stuff. This is why people will run Goblin King uh, to keep your clan alive in the face of an Engineered Plague. So that could be a possibility because yes, he's running a lot of small rebels. Part of me just wants to add some bigger rebels. Sky Captain, Joval Queen. But that's not the route he went. The reason I kind of want to do those is because of one of the next cards I'm going to mention. When you look at his lands, he has 23 lands, 4 Adarkar Wastes, 4 Flooded Strands, 2 Island, 11 Plains, and then he runs 2 Gaia's Cradle. So this is the novel part of this deck, Gaia's Cradle. I always love the Cradle. The Cradle is always a good addition, but he puts it into what is otherwise a blue-white deck. And I love this as a way to feed the mana hungry
just to get your
opponents.
colorless mana, yeah.
Just to get colorless mana. He doesn't even need to be, he doesn't even want it to be green. Tap, add 1 green to your mana pool for each creature you control. You're running a deck with 22 creatures. A lot of them are rebels. You can use that cradle to power the activated recruitment ability of all your rebels. Something a little different, something a little fun.
Nice.
I like
Another thing I
that.
was going to mention, since this is also a blue-white deck, and when the last one was too, you're talking about different things to do with rebels. I know I mentioned it a lot of times already, but artificial evolution goes well with Lin Civi and or other rebel tutors. Because you can just change what they're fetching, and you can make a deck that uses rebels to pull out non-rebel cards from your deck. You know what I mean?
Rebels to pull out non-rebel cards. Instant.
Like you
1
cast
blue.
Lin
Change the
Civi.
text of target spell or permanent by replacing all instances of one creature type with another.
So I could cast Lin Civi, and then I could change what her card says to beasts instead of rebels, and then I can use her to tutor beasts.
You could do that. You love these cards. You love
I
changing
do.
colors. You
I
love
do. I
changing
do.
creature
I
types.
do. It's because I think a lot of the things I like or like I want to mess around with are cards that they're like ideas that existed back in the 90s, but they just didn't have a lot of support yet, you know?
Yeah. Do you have any brews right now with artificial evolution actually in it? I've never. Have
I
I
have a
faced?
couple.
Did you have one in a cleric deck that I
Yes,
played
the
against? Okay.
cleric deck is the main one I think I have it in. I don't think I actually have too many other decks brewed up with it, but I just some like vague ideas of things that I might throw it into. But yeah, I have it in cleric deck with Rotlung Reanimator is one of the things I like to use it on.
Okay. I think you got me once with it. It's been a while.
Yep.
It's been a long time since I played that deck, but I think you got me once with it. But those are the Rebel decks I wanted to discuss today. We got two classic ones, came in number 1 and number 2 in PT Chicago 2000, and two that I found that did really well in some recent tournaments. Flippy played his blue-white deck with some Rebels to what? Second place in Uthen Troll Cup in 2021. And I think I forgot to mention this, but Grant Fly played his counter Rebels in the Magic Online Society just last summer 2024 to fourth place out of a field of 89 players. So it did really well.
Oh, nice.
Did really well. I like to see that.
Hmm.
Now, I don't
Yeah, it
know if
makes
there's
me
anything.
wonder more about that those counter spells they're using then.
Yeah, this is not at all like I'm not saying anything negative about his choices here, but it's just not at all what myself as somebody who's not an experienced tournament player and somebody who's still really trying to get back in the swing of things with Magic. It's not at all what I would have chosen as my counter package.
Yeah.
It's just it's interesting to see this, and I wonder why he made these choices for
Yeah.
prohibit
I
one
don't know. I
memory
guess it
lapse.
might, probably just something about the meta that he knows.
You
Uh
don't see this very often. If somebody's running just 5 counter spells, you don't see 4 prohibit one memory lapse.
yeah.
I don't think so. But he's doing work with it. Okay, Alex. I don't know if there's anything else you want to say about Rebels today. I think that's going to be it for us for Rebels for a little while. We're going to move on to some fresher topics, some other topics in the coming weeks. What are those going to be? I'm not sure yet. We'll figure them out. I got a whole list of shit that I wrote down the other day, trying to plan out the next 3 to 6 months of the podcast. But new topics are always popping in my head. I get excited about something. I want to talk about that instead. We still got to do some old reviews of some old sets like Tempest. We still haven't reviewed Tempest. We still
Oh,
haven't done like reviews of Stronghold, of whatever other thing is in that block.
Exodus, I think it.
Exodus,
There you go.
whatever comes after that. Mercadian Masks, Nemesis. We talk about cards from these sets, but I still want to go back through all of these sets and
Yeah.
just go like through the
I
basics of
can't
this.
remember which sets we've actually like sat down specifically and reviewed. I know we did Visions,
We didn't do visions.
we
That's what
didn't?
I realized the other day.
Oh
No,
Lord.
we did episodes where we did episodes on cards from visions. We did
Okay.
episodes on the killer commons from visions.
Yeah, commons, okay.
We did cards on like we did some episodes on like cheap rare, our favorite cheap rares from some of these old sets that we might want to brew with. We did Mirage. We did Ice Age, like talking about where we kind of discussed the generalities of the sets. We did
Okay.
Mirage.
Yeah.
We did Ice Age. We did Alliances. We did Homelands. We did Cold Snap.
Okay.
But we didn't do Visions Weatherlight. We did Mirage. We didn't do Visions Weatherlight. We talked about Weatherlight a lot. We talked about Visions a lot. We didn't do like a general episode on the set as a whole. Kind of want to do that. Probably starting with Visions. There's a whole ton of deck types that I want to talk about. There's episodes I want to do on things that we're brewing personally.
Mm-hmm.
There's episodes I want to do on some other things that I wrote down that I can't remember, and that's why I wrote them down. So I can reference my list later. But there's a
Once I find a
whole
box of Arabian Nights at a
shit ton
garage
of
sale,
stuff.
we're gonna do opening videos.
We can purchase packs of Fallen Empires and Homelands. We could open those on the
Yeah.
show.
Start with low budget opening videos.
I don't even know how much a pack of Fallen Empires or Homelands would go for right now, but I do know that it would still be way more than I would want to pay for a pack of Fallen Empires or Homelands.
Yeah.
Like, are they going for retail price from 1995 or whenever the fuck Fallen Empires was?
No, I think they're finally more than that.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying is I don't want to pay
Yeah, I don't want to
I
pay
don't want
more
to pay
than
more than their
original
retail
retail
price for
price
them.
for Fallen Empires. I opened enough of it back then.
Yeah.
Kept hoping that like maybe there's something good in this set. Buy another pack.
Baron Sangir. No, that's fucking Homelands. Uh, Fallen Empires. Goblin Commons. Hymn to Torak. Goblin
Yeah, it's
Grenade.
mostly a lot of it's commons.
The
Yeah.
best cards. We've talked about this many times too. The best cards from Fallen Empires. Fucking Commons. I dug a Thrall Champion out of a bulk box the other day, Alex.
Mm.
I was very excited about that. I remember probably 3, 4 years ago now when prices of Magic were going crazy and everybody was like, you need to buy and grade every damn thing on the reserve list. There was definitely some YouTuber that like was trying to make Thrall Champion his pet card. And you know, if you bought Thrall Champions, I don't know why you did that. I'm sorry for you. I'm sorry for your loss. But they're definitely cheaper than they were. Everything's cheaper than it was when everything was spiking. But yeah, they briefly went up to $10.
By the way, also good with artificial
I got one for
evolution,
like a
which just
nickel.
had up on the screen.
These will go back down to a nickel, right? Well, not a nickel, 30, 40 cents.
I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, probably. I
Anyways,
don't know.
I was trying to pull up. Oh, here we go. Future topic episodes. What are some of the things that I wrote down the other day? Let me look at this real quick. If I can find it. Where did I write them down? Did I forget to save it? Alex,
I don't know. Probably.
I might have forgot to save it. Now I can't remember everything I wanted to talk about. I have typo reviews. This is old stuff. Premodern Elves. We haven't done that yet. Premodern Rebels. I can cross that off the list. Anyways, I can't find all the shit that I wrote down, but trust
There's
me,
so much of it. There's so much to come.
it was extensive. I was actually writing all this stuff down, thinking to myself, we're never going to get past 2001. We're gonna we might pass away before that time. There's so many topics I want to talk about. We're never going to get beyond the year 2001 in Magic the Gathering. But anyways, if you've made it this far, thank you very much. Please subscribe to the channel if you hadn't already. If you're subscribed to us on YouTube but not on Spotify, I want to say thank you for subscribing to us on YouTube, but you should also open us up on Spotify and give us a follow there. If you're subscribed to us on YouTube, Spotify, but not on Apple Podcast, I appreciate you very much. But you know, why don't you open up Apple Podcast and subscribe to us there as well? If you're subscribed to us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, but not on Ronnie's app, why don't you download Ronnie's app, which is a podcast app that was started by Alex's friend Ronnie. Search for our podcast and subscribe to us on there as well. If you liked any of the decks that I showed you today, you want to build those decks, but you need to buy the cards first to build those decks. Consider purchasing those cards through TCG Player using our TCG Player link. I know I was complaining about this son of a bitch earlier in the episode that thought he can send me these shit cards that were damaged and bent and all nicked up and stuff that he listed as near mint or light play, and he's like, oh, who cares? The guy's buying them for 15 cents. I'll screw him. Yes, these were purchased on TCG Player, and you're like, do I want to get my cards off TCG Player? What kind of quality control do they have? I'll say, yes, you still do want to get your cards off TCG Player because I could take a moment and just dispute this. I could send a message to this kid and
Good.
be like, these are not light play or near mint, not even close.
Send him
And
a
I
dead
don't
fish wrapped in a newspaper.
and I don't care if they're only 15 cents. I got a lot of time on my hands. I'll lie. I don't really have a lot of time on my hands. New job. My daddy was stolen, all that stuff. I got a lot of stuff to do. But he doesn't know that. I've done stuff like this before. I have disputed. I have complained to the person, say, this is not listed right. Refund. TCG Player refunded me every time. I ran into this issue a few times, especially back a few years ago, the post office in town was destroying all my packages. I never had to take a hit on that. I would show the damaged stuff to the seller, to TCG player. I always got a refund every time, so it's very simple. So don't worry about it. Click that link, buy what you need using our affiliate link from TCG Player. I appreciate it very much. Alex, do you have anything you want to say to the listeners before we go?
Stay warm out there.
It
Pile the pelts,
is
get your pelts, pile them onto yourself.
frigid. It's frigid out there.
Preferably modern, non-animal pelts.
I was going to say something about like trapping, beaver pelts. What else can you get?
I mean, if they're old
Fox.
inherited pelts, like, I mean, you may as well use them.
Yes. No new animal skins.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a good message.
Or maybe, I mean, if you live up in Alaska, I'm not gonna
Or
like
maybe, yeah, we're
sweat
not
you
going
for
to
like
judge. Sometimes you
trapping
have
like
to do it.
some type of pine
You got
marten
to
or something.
you got to do what you got to do to survive.
Yeah.
The elements are unforgiving.
But if you're some kind of like LA socialite, like you don't need to be wearing like mink pelts right now because you're cold.
Totally unnecessary.
Yeah.
Talk to you next week.
I ain't gonna do this anymore. That's all for me. Goodbye.